So I've wanted to make this video for a couple of weeks now, ever since I first saw the film that I'm going to be talking about, but due to the nature of it, I've held back. But I realized it's something I could talk about for an extended period of time. I haven't seen anyone cover the film from the perspective I'm looking for. So the film we're going to be talking about is Palm Trees and Power Lines. I'm not done with it yet. I kind of like perspectives to give, both as a Christian transgender talking points. My first complaint with the film is that it is too dark. I mean, the lighting is really bad. It's almost impossible to watch without being in
a dark, pitch black room.
And this is not the kind of film you want to be watching in a pitch black room or at home alone or at night. Another complaint I've been hearing about the film is the title,
Palm Trees and Power Lines,
because it doesn't tell you anything about the film.
I actually really like the title.
It's very personal.
It's sort of like a placeholder title, but you use it so many times when referring to your project that eventually becomes the identity of the movie. It's similar to when I write stories and I don't really know the title I want yet. I just take the names of the main character or the main two characters and I say,
oh, this is the Nate and Wyona story.
This is the Clayton story.
Which I'm currently working on and you can read on Wattpad if you follow the link in my
Bio.
I was introduced to this film as a YouTube trailer before just watching a random video.
And it immediately caught my attention.
So I found the video, not on YouTube, but a totally safe site that doesn't have ads or viruses or anything. It was so good that I watched it, and then I watched it 2 more times over the span of a couple weeks, but I wasn't able to get through it all the way. I kept having to skip this one scene that I was only able to get through once. Summary. Leah is just your average, ordinary 17-year-old girl enjoying her final summer before her final year of high school.
With Sarah Donnelly?
Oh,
she's
up there.
She's so hot.
Oh my god. So she's like a 9.
I agree. She's like a 9 for sure.
She's like an
Might
11.
be higher, to be honest.
What a beautiful, what's the word, voluptuous?
And she's just doing average, ordinary teenage girl things.
Drinking, smoking, and sex.
Which, okay, like, this is not my 17-year-old experience, so
Women in the audience.
would you please, like, let me know what your experience was as a 17-year-old girl? So I think the idea is for this film to take place in the current year.
His 2022.
But based on context clues in the film, I feel like the story takes place 10 years earlier. Sure, you have teenagers spending all their time on their phones and comparing each other on social media, but you have to remember that social media and smartphones have been around for at least 10 years.
Sorry to date anybody here.
Another thing is, Leah talks to another character named Tom about Instagram hashtags, and Tom, who is in his 30s, doesn't know what they are.
And I think that's pretty unrealistic for an individual in his 30s in the year 2022 to not know what Instagram hashtags are. Given that Instagram has been around for over 10 years, this individual would have been in his 20s around the time Instagram was born and likely would have been on Instagram, so I'm sure this person would know what hashtags are.
Another thing is that the director of the film based Leah's story off her own experiences as a teenager because she herself was groomed by an older man. I think her story took place about 10 years earlier. Leah is disconnected from her friends. Her mother kind of neglects her to pursue relationships. Leah has no prospect or vision for her life in the future. That is until one day she is swept off her feet by a handsome older man named Tom who rescues her during a kerfuffle in the restaurant. He takes her back to her house in his car, forges a connection with her, and that eventually spirals into a romantic and then sexual relationship. Pretty soon, Leah is coming to him crying about all her problems. She says he's the only person she wants to spend time with. He suggests they run away, they go on vacation for a few days. Tom gets her into uncomfortable sexual territory she hasn't experienced before. Then he coerces her to do the same thing for another man for money, and Then the film leaves with Leah getting away from Tom and basically never seeing him again. So I've seen about 3 reviews for Palm Trees and Power Lines, and none of them have been what I wanted. They've all been done by grown adults, and most have been done by men who can't fully appreciate Leah's situation. There are a few scenes I want to particularly talk about because
I myself am a teenage girl.
I spend way too much time explaining this, but basically the film is shot documentary style where you don't really get to see inside anybody's heads. You only get to learn about the characters through watching their actions and listening to their conversations. So it's difficult to identify with any one character because you never get to know much about each character. But because the film is so well done, I was still able to identify heavily with Leah, even though I didn't get to know her very well as a person. I could heavily relate to her experience and the choices she made in the situation. I don't really enjoy the particular hobbies she has adopted, and unlike her, I actually am pretty interested in life and take delight in many different activities. I also don't really have a particular friend group, but I'm pretty close with a lot of individual people. I also have a good relationship with both my parents and all my siblings.
However,
One thing I heavily relate to her is her disconnect from people and the gravitational way she attached herself to the first person showing her excessive attention, love bombing her. So a lot of the adults pointed out how creepy Tom was from the very beginning of the movie and how he progressively got creepier throughout the movie.
I disagree.
I didn't see him as creepy. I don't think Leah did either. I think she recognized fundamentally that the situation was bad, namely that an older man was asking her to get into his car so he could give her a ride home.
No rides from strangers.
That's a very fair and responsible point.
But already the dynamic between them seems to be that of respect and no fear from Leah's end.
So, that's pretty good.
Tom's methods are very smooth. He begins playing different genres of music on the radio until Leah responds positively to one. It turns out to be an oldies song. I don't know what that would mean, like what, an 80s song, a 70s song? I didn't recognize the music, but she receives it well, and he said, all right, she's an oldies fan, which specifically her being interested in the oldies and him being older, there's already a bit of like a connection. You're cool, you like oldies, you like old music. Does that mean you're sort of like born in the wrong generation type? Would you prefer somebody who's, you know, your own spirit generation? When Leah gets into Tom's car, something he says that's actually pretty creepy and that even I would have recognized as creepy is, oh, you seem so mature, you should really hang out with people who are more on your level, aka him, aka only him. But some things he actually did rather effectively, and listen up groomers, this is grooming 101. There's something very childish and whimsical about him. He says, you don't have to finish college to get a good job. He works for himself. He has his own job, he does his own thing. You could be like Tom, you could just live freely in the world. He's like, there's just something innocent and childish about him, as opposed to the teenage boy who sort of forces himself upon her. No, Tom is nice. He's a nice guy. He's a sweet guy. He would never do anything to hurt Leah. Another thing that I didn't get right away, but that every adult seemed to identify immediately, was that
Tom is a sex trafficker.
going into the film, I knew it was going to be about a relationship between a teenage girl and an older man, and I knew this was going to end in disaster. I wanted to watch the film to get like a cold slap of reality. What I actually thought was going to happen was that Tom was going to become incredibly controlling and try to destroy her life and be extremely stalkerish and possessive. No, actually, he wasn't just a groomer and possessive. He was a sex trafficker. So the adults watching the film were able to identify Tom as a sex trafficker as soon as they found out he lived in a motel. I had no idea, and I feel that most teen girls would probably have no idea. From this film, I learned quite a bit about pimping, and what I took away is that basically a pimp is like a husband in a harem. He has a lot of women that he can use for himself, except in this situation, he also can rent out these women to other men to get money. So a pimp is like a man with a harem who rents out his wives and concubines. The third thing I want to talk about is the most disturbing part of the movie, and that is when Tom is pimping Leah out to another man. Tom convinces Leah to take a vacation with him for a few days to the beach. At this point, they've already been intimate a few times, so I was under the impression that,
Okay, well, they can't really go any further than that, right?
no. Then Tom actually makes her do
Something else for him?
that requires a lot more degradation on her part than pleasure. And she doesn't really want to do that, but she obliges him. And then the following day, Tom says,
Hey, remember how much fun yesterday we had doing this thing? Well, I told a guy about you, and he wants to meet you, and he wants you to show him a good time too.
and Leah is horrified, like,
Why are you forcing me to cheat on you with a stranger? I didn't even enjoy doing that to you. Why do you think I would enjoy doing that to another man?
I don't want to do
she's trapped here with him. Who knows how many miles away from home? She cannot take this man. This man is a massive bodybuilder, okay? Like, listen, some tips in the future. If you plan on getting together with someone significantly older than yourself and you plan on meeting, preferably choose somebody you could take in a fight. It will go better for you if you're able to defend yourself physically in this situation, because if not, you are dead, my dude, you are dead. I was under the impression when Tom said,
No, a guy?
that, Tom was talking about a friend or somebody he had just met, so I assumed, okay, well, Tom is like 34, this friend might be in his late 30s or maybe his late 20s. Leah just resigns herself. Tom leaves her there. We watch her sort of shake in fear when the door opens and in walks a balding gray-haired man. I was not expecting that, and that just made me 100 times more uncomfortable.
Something about it. Yeah, okay, well,
I hoped he would help her escape, but like, why would he do that? I mean, he literally did pay. So he coerces her to sit on the bed with him. And then basically, R-words her. And we get to watch everything. The camera pans away from graphic stuff, but we get to watch Leah's expression and body language. So in the very next scene, Tom and Leah are just eating at a fast food restaurant as if nothing ever happened. And then Leah excuses herself to go to the bathroom. And from there she runs away, she calls her friend, she gets picked up. And I was so convinced Tom was going to stalk her and follow her.
But he did.
The final scene. It's basically left on an open note with Leah getting into contact with Tom again. And a lot of people were upset because they wanted Leah to escape from Tom, or they're like,
Why did you call Tom again? Why are you reconnecting with him when he literally pimped you out?
but I actually think this is a perfect ending because this is exactly what I would have done in this situation. So when Leah calls her friend Amber to pick her up from a gas station, she doesn't want to talk about it. Amber and Leah spend some more time together for the end of the summer, and nobody is helping Leah deal with her trauma. Leah's not opening up to anybody about it, but as someone with a little bit of experience with just relationship issues,
I know that even opening up to people doesn't really help.
even if you have one special friend who's willing to talk to you all 24 hours of the day for all the days that you're going through the severe withdrawal, it's not enough and you're craving this one person. So it's just so easy within the first few days, definitely, to fall back into the trap of returning to that person. She doesn't find any support from her best friend. The only person who ever supported her was Tom. So she tries to call him. His number has been disconnected. She goes to the motel. He's no longer there. She knocks on the door of one of his neighbors, who eventually calls Tom on his new number and lets Leah borrow her phone.
I miss you too.
The ending is pretty painful because you don't know whether she returned to Tom or whether she left the situation, never seeing him again, but still seeing him as a positive experience in her life.
I appreciate this ending because it is definitely very realistic.
But it's very easy to get attached to somebody so much that you'll...
One will do anything to you.
I've literally said once that I'm the type of person to let my partner rip out my heart, devour it, defecate it, and shove it back in my ribcage, and I'll just be like,
So, do you want to watch a movie now?
really, the only thing that can help Leah is just time and experience.